morning, students. This is Dr. P. Chandana, working as an associate professor in the Department of CSC, IARE. So, I am here with the subject of computer organization and architecture. So, already we have dealt with some of the basics of this concept. And as a part of this, we have been learning with the first unit, first module, that is computer organization introduction. So, in the context of computer organization and introduction, we have seen some of the basic things like what is the definition of a computer, how it has been exactly working, what are the functional units you are having, what are the organization of those functional units, and what is the importance of instruction cycle, interrupts, and other things we have been already discussed in the past sessions. And apart from this, that means we are just discussing the computer organization in two different phases. The first phase is simply a basics phase. The second phase is completely internal organization, how it is been handling the data transfers within the CPU or within the organization of a CPU. Now, as a part of this, as a basic concept of this internal organization, we have to first understand what is the meaning or what is the interaction mode we need to perform, or what is the communication mode we have to perform to interact with the system. So, because of this reason, we have been discussed about the basics of the computer programming languages, and we have been discussed the basic things of the issues like the importance of programming languages. And then we have been seeing that if at all I am saying that data is being issued or data is being instructed by means of programming languages. So we have seen there are three forms of programming languages that are existing. What are they? High level notations, assembly level notations, and mission level notations. So high level notations or high level language is represented for the communication medium or interaction mode for the end user to the computer. So what are the instructions you are giving to the computer? It will be in the form of textual representation, which is a natural language representation. When it comes to the context of mission notations, it's purely a bit and binary digital logic circuits which activates basing on zeros and ones only. So in this context, in order to provide the communication medium between the high level source and the mission level source, we need to have the intermediary nodes or intermediary executions of the code. So for handling that case, we'll be using the assembly language notations. Now, this is just a first mode of communication, or this is just a mode of communication which helps the end user to interact with the missions. Now, when the end user has been interacting with the missions, they will be issuing some of the issuing some of the important things like the context of compiler, assembler, linker, and loader. So as a part of this, we have already seen with an examples also in the last sessions. Now, apart from this, so we have been started with the communication mode, and now we have to discuss with how the data have been generally represented in the corresponding computer units. We have been said in the first phase of a computer organization that memory unit is playing a key role in storing the data. Registers are playing a key role in getting the data for temporary storage. And we have already said that there are some other registers like instruction register as well as program counter to handle the instruction executions. And there are general purpose registers which holds the data for temporary locations or temporary operations. Control unit is to issue the signals. And then we have been issued with the next one, that is arithmetic logic unit, which is essential for handling the operations of arithmetic logic as well as shift operations. Now, what are we trying to say is, so we said that as a mode of computers, as a mode of interaction, we have included the programming languages. Now the next part comes is how the data is exactly organized in the mission. So we are saying that data is in the form of ones and zeros, and we are saying that data is communicated from the user to the mission in the form of high level notations. Now it is a part of the context of assembly language programming to understand what exactly the program or what exactly the user is requesting, or what exactly the user is intended to perform. If I am writing some statement, what is the meaning of that statement? First, I need to interpret that. I need to understand that. I need to convey that message to the mission language so that it can provide the information basing on the user's request. So in one way, we are saying that assembly language is playing the key role in handling the operations of the interaction between end user as well as the mission notations. So we are going to see in this particular aspect what is the importance of assembly language instructions. So as a part of this, we have been learned with the first case as programming languages. Next one we are going to discuss is assembly language notations. Assembly language instructions. Now, we said that assembly language is playing a key role in understanding the end user's query and converting them or transforming them into mission notations. So now we are saying that it acts as an intermediary between high level notations and the mission level notations. Now, in the context of this assembly language instructions, it should also say that for what purpose this instruction is meant for. For example, I am giving some statement. That statement is intended for what purpose? That means I am first interpreting that. Then, basing on the functionality of that particular operation, I need to intend the mission to perform the corresponding task. And next one is, how does the data can be stored in it? So, and I have to also see that how can I operate two different sources of data within a single operation. So, as a part of this, we are going to discuss about the 4 issues with respect to assembly language instructions, and we are calling that as attributes of the assembly language. So, in this case, what are you doing? You are finding first what is the meaning of this and what is the intention of that particular statement. So, what is the statement given by the user as a part of instruction? What does that instruction mean? How to represent that instruction? So, these are the 2 issues we have to consider for the assembly language notation, because it considers the interaction between high level notations to mission level notation. So, in this aspect, it cannot just like that convert. So, it has to first understand the meaning, provide the bit representation so that it can handle the mission instructions. So, these 3 things are the basic concerns you have to follow. Because of this reason, we are considering the 4 basic attributes of the assembly language. First one is instruction types. So, what do you mean by instruction types? Instruction type is nothing but what is the intention of the particular instruction. For example, I am writing C is equals to A plus B. What is the intention of it? It is an arithmetic operation. I am just displaying print of hello. What is the meaning of this? This is just for displaying the content. If I am writing C is equals to A plus B, so this is just displaying the addition of 2 numbers and storing the result into C. If I write the statement like C equals to 10, what is the meaning of this? So now the variable C is being assigned with a new value 10. So that means the different operations which are intended, the types of operations as well as functions of the operations are being represented in instruction types. So because of this reason, the instruction types can be classified into 3 basic operations. 3 basic operations. So first one is data transfer operation, second one is data operation, and finally data program control instruction. So we can also say this as data transfer instructions, data operation instructions, and program control instructions. So these are the 3 basic sources of information where the system has to understand, or assembly language has to understand what exactly it is intended for, what type of instruction it is intended for. So here data transfer operation always instructs only the movements of data. Movement of data. For example, if I am writing C equals to 10, 10 is loaded into C. This is called movement of data. So something like shift operation, move operation, load operation, all these things comes under the data transfer instructions. And next, data operation instructions. It is intended for handling the basic arithmetic or logic or shift operations. So basic arithmetic logic arithmetic logic shift operations will be coming under this data operation instructions. The final one is program control instructions. If I am writing the statements like for I equals to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, sum is equals to sum plus I. Sum is equals to sum plus I. So what does this mean? How many times this sum should be executed? Up to n times. Once it reaches to n, what happens? The loop will be break and it will be coming out of the for loop. So in the coming out of the for loop, what it will perform? It will just execute the next statements after the for loop. So control breaks the loop and comes out of the loop and just goes for the next line execution. So in that cases, how it has to represent internally, it is a basic concern. So these program control instructions are generally represented by means of 4 basic operations. First, to consider the loops, we are considering jump or branch instructions. Instead of go to statement, we'll be using jump or branch instructions. And then In order to consider the function calls, we will be using subroutines or procedures. Subroutines or procedures. And now if at all any errors happen, it may be due to power failure, hardware failure, or it may be due to some software compilation error. So however the errors which have been executed, or however the data is handling with the interruptions, or data is handling with the halting states, those are considered as the interrupts. Interrupts which have happened due to program execution or due to hardware failure consideration. So interrupts have been generally classified into two types. One is hardware interrupts and the other one is software interrupts. The last one is simply handling the errors. If at all you have a indefinite errors or infinite errors like looping continuously, so in such cases you cannot handle the operations. You have to simply break the execution. So what you will do, you'll be simply switching off the system, or you will be simply restarting the system. So in that cases, we need to hold that exception. So we need to hold that particular handling of operations. So we call them as exception or trap. Exceptions or traps. So these are the different representations which have been considered for the operations. So these are the different forms of instruction types, which depends purely on what type of execution you are trying to intend for, or what type of executions you are trying to execute. So such kind of things have been executed by these types, so these kind of instruction types. The next one is data transfer instructions. So data transfer instructions, as a name it is suggested, it is just intended for the movements. It can be the movement from the microprocessor to memory, memory to register, register to microprocessor, or within the microprocessor. So these are the set of these are the five things which have been explained over there as nothing but the different movements that will happen between microprocessor to memory, or within the memory, within the microprocessor, or vice versa. So data operation represents the arithmetic, logic, and shift micro instructions. Now the next one is data types. So generally, if at all you are talking about any instruction to be handled or in the programming notations, we need to have different forms of data. So the different forms of data we have in general is three: numeric, character, and boolean. Numeric always represents floating point and integer values. Boolean value always represents true or false conditions, or yes or no conditions. And the character value always represents ASCII or Unicodes. Next one is program control instructions. Just now we have discussed. So these are the four issues by me handling the loops, for handling the exceptions, for handling the problems, and for handling the function calls. We are using these kind of things. Now we are going for the next one, address specifications. Now what we have done, we have been first given the communication mode. Next we have been seeing what is the intention of the instruction, how it can be, what are the different formats that can be executed. Now if at all I am saying that C is equals to A plus B, and I am giving A equals to 10 and B equals to 20. Now A is stored at one place, B is stored at one place. These will be located in somewhere location in memory or register. Now how to fetch that register, how to instruct that register to give the data, or how to get the data from that particular memory location. So the addressing specifications are mandatory to understand how to fetch the data and to execute the data. So what are we doing? We first initiated the communication mode. That means I am giving the instructions to the computers. And next, what are we doing? We have been saying that what is the type of operation I am trying to perform. So it is movement operation, or it is arithmetic operation, or is it any other looping structures, whatever it is. We have to first understand what exactly the meaning of the corresponding instruction. Now we need to fetch those instructions. Even if it is stored in memory or register, we have to fetch that instructions. There are n group of people in some class. Now we have to call them. So how you will call, you can either use the ID number, or you can, if you know the name, you can directly call the name. So I want to locate some X person in the class. So if at all I want to get the data from that particular X person, first I need to call him either by number or by name. Similarly here also we said that set of instructions are fed to the computer by saving some file. Now it has to execute its instructions by understanding the meaning of it. When it is trying to execute the instruction, it has to fetch the data from some location. So when it has to fetch the data from some location, how do you understand, or where it is stored, or how the system can understand where the data is located? In order to consider this, we are going for the next issue, that is addressing mode. So let us see what it is. So addressing mode. So this is just a location where the instruction is stored, or location of the ID of the instruction execution. So if at all I am writing some statement, the statement number is nothing but the 0. It doesn't carry any information, but it acts as an address location. Okay. Now we are giving some instruction stating as LDAC5. So LDAC5 is nothing but the meaning of this instruction is load accumulator. Load accumulator. The meaning of the instruction is load accumulator. Now the load accumulator can be loaded with the data or loaded with the address. Now I am saying that this is the address. Now it is being specified that LDAC5. Now LDAC5 means what? 5 is some address location. I am fetching that location which is having my original data. This is my original data. So store the value in CPU by handling the address of the corresponding data location. So 5 is the data location where my address is specified, and using this address I am getting the original value. So in this way I am getting the direct addressing mode. So the first kind of mode we have is direct addressing modes. The set of addressing modes we have is, first one, direct addressing mode. Second one, indirect addressing mode, where you are specifying the address if you know. Otherwise you have been calling up the X location where the X location is having one more location, and from that location you are fetching the original value. That means something like looping the address specifications. This is called indirect instructions or indirect addressing mode. Next one is register direct addressing mode. Register direct addressing mode. Next one is register indirect addressing modes. So there are two different things. First one is simply fetching from the memory if you know the address. Otherwise, fetching from memory, if you don't know the address also, you are fetching from memory only by having a different location information. The second one is register direct and register indirect. We are trying to fetch the information from the registers. So we'll see how it is. The next one is implicit addressing mode, immediate addressing mode, relative addressing mode, and indexed addressing mode. So these are the forms of addressing modes which you are going to see for now. So first we have started is direct addressing mode, where we have content, address is specified, from there you are fetching the data. So this is direct specification. Let's come for the next one, that is indirect addressing mode. In this case, you can directly say that it is something like a pointer specification. For example, if I give pointer P, star of ampersand P gives me the original value. This is the addressing of direct addressing mode. So in this case, what happens in C programming, address of P specifies the address, or ampersand P specifies the address, whereas star of ampersand P specifies that the location number, say 1024 is there. From this location, fetch the value. So let us say 10. So this will be fetched out. So in this way, you are performing the direct addressing mode by specifying the ampersand P. Now the next one is indirect addressing mode. So as I said earlier, we don't have a direct location, but we'll fetch the operation with the indirect addressing. So here we are specifying with the @5. So we are getting the location from the address 5. So address 5 has been given over here. Now this 5 is having 5 is presented with the new value 10, and this 10 value is presented with the location number 10 again. Now this will give me the original value 20. So 20 is my original value or original data. Original value or original data. So in this way, we are performing the transferring of information by means of the indirect addressing mode. Generally, this will be used in the memory organization techniques. We will be seeing this in the further session. Next one is register direct mode. So here, if you observe this, in the direct addressing mode, we have direct location 5, which means the address is specific. But in the register direct, you have been having a address specification as R, where the register is consisting of a data value of R. It can be address or it can be location. But generally, we are fetching the data. Because of this reason, we will be finding address only. The R is possessing with some address, and the R is being given with the original value. So this is my original value. So in this case, In this way, we are performing the transferring of information by means of the help of registers or with the help of a registers. Next one is register indirect. So in the register indirect, we'll have the same convention again. Instead of direct R, we'll be providing with a special symbol at the rate, and we'll be giving with the R. So what happens here? At the rate R is some location that is having some other address. That address will be giving some other location that will be having my original value. So you can see R is intended. R is implied with the 5. 5 is again one more value. This is giving me the new value. So here this is my original value. Original value. So in this way, we are performing the register indirect operations. Next one is immediate addressing modes. So immediate addressing modes, what is the meaning of this? So immediate means it is being performed with a direct transfer of information. So here I am having a direct location, directly fetching the location and with the direct operations. So here in order to represent this, we will be using a special symbol #5, where it is consisting the direct location of the information or direct value from the location. Next one is implicit addressing mode. So here we don't have any direct locations. We don't specify any address. We don't specify any register. And we don't specify any special symbols. We directly give LDAC, which means that it has to perform the stack operation. So what are the stack you're performing? What are the operations you're performing on the stack? That will be maintained in the implicit addressing mode. So here this is following the storing of value in the CPU. Next one is relative addressing mode. So what do you mean by relative addressing mode? As the name it is suggested, relative addressing mode means we are trying to add the addresses and we are trying to give the added value will be my location where my original data is stored. So let us consider the same example over here. So here the relative addressing mode has been specified with the dollar symbol. The dollar symbol over here represents that LDAC $5 represents that the 5 is having some location. Now this 5 is added to the original value and the next instruction will be given with the 6. That means one instruction is passed over here and next instruction is been fetching for the instruction. Next instruction has to be executed. That means 1 is executed plus address 5 is added, which is equals to 6. Now 6 will be my original value location or original address of the data. Original address of the data. So, or as you can say that I will be adding $5. One instruction is executed next. This 5 will be having some other information. Now, this information is also added with the next location. So, this address has been given with the specification. So, 1 plus 5 plus 6, which is equals to 12. This will be my original value. So, in this way, I am having the original data presentation. Next one is indexed addressing mode. So what is the meaning of indexed addressing mode? Index means I'm having some specification. For example, generally for the purpose of address specifications in postal department, we'll be using the pin codes. For example, 50040. Let us consider the example of a pin codes. Pin code of a postal department. So 50040, 50072, 50050. So these are different address locations which are intended for the area-wise specifications. Similarly, we follow the same approach here. Here, if you observe this things is uniform. Only these things will be changed. And this is mandatory for the complete area. That means if it is related to Hyderabad, Hyderabad will be specified like this. If it is related to Vizag, that will be defined with some other specification. If it is intended for handling within India, that will be specified as something. Or else your mobile codes, mobile phone numbers. For USA, you'll be having a prefix of 1 or plus 1. For India, you'll be having a prefix of plus 91. For some other country or Malaysia, you'll be having a prefix of plus 44. So something like each and every country will be having unique specification code to handle their, to recognize their areas or recognize their countries. Similarly, for the pin codes also, we are following the same case. So, indexed means we have a uniform format and that uniform format is appended with a new location so that it is defining the original address value. So, something like if I want to get the pin code of Malkajgiri, that will be having some other issue, some other value. If I want to get the pin code of some Deshmukhi or some other place, that will be having some different Unicode. But the 5000 is common and the rest all will be deferred. So in this way, we have been defining different operations to handle the case. Now, in this particular operations, we are going to see the same. Let us consider the example. So what we are doing? We are doing LDAC 5 of x. What is the x value? X is some address. Now x is possessing with the value 10. Now this 10 is having some location. So what I am doing? I am adding this 5 plus 10 so that the new location is 15. In that 15, my original value will be added. So 5 plus 10 is equals to 15. This 15 will be my location where the data is stored. Location of data where the data is stored. So in this way, I'll be maintaining the operations basing on the context of indexes which is already informed. So we'll be starting with the 5 of x. So when it compared with the relative thing, we have the context of dollar. But in this case, we're just appending with the 5 of x. Where x is the original, x is some address value. That address will be appended with the prefix and it is providing you with the context of address location where my original value is stored. Now in this particular case, we are calling this 5 as a offset. We are calling this 5 as an offset. So this is a way how the data locations can be fetched from memory or register. Now the next one is, how do we represent the data? If at all I am saying that I am writing the instruction add a comma b. So how do you represent the instruction? If I write add a comma b comma c, how do I represent that particular instruction? So these things are called as instruction specifications. And we are calling, for understanding this, we'll be having some 2 different examples. This is one example. Next one is, for example, if I'm writing a plus b plus c. In how many ways can we write this? We can write it as a plus b plus c, or else a plus of b plus c, or else a plus b is equals to d plus c. A plus b is equals to d plus c, or else I can write a plus d, where d is equals to b plus c. So for a single statement, I have written multiple operations. That means the number of ways it can represent, the type of way it can operate. So this is one presentation and this is another presentation. How do you represent the instructions into internal micro operations or internal mission level notations? For understanding this, we'll be calling this as an instruction code or opcode. We'll be calling these two as operators or operands. So these are the 2 basic things which you have to understand. So add is a high level notations. It is simply some instruction. So in order to convert it to mission notation, it should be having some uniform code. That unique code has been called as opcode. And the operators which you are performing, they are having their own operations. It can be register or it can be memory location. So they have been called as a operands. So these are the 2 specifications you have to consider. And in how many ways you are representing, that is again another format. So one is converting, second one is format representation. So we are calling this as instruction formats. Instruction formats. So let us see this. So here the instruction formats can be of different formats. We can either include more operands with less instructions, or we can either include more operands with a larger data specifications. So these are the 2 important things we have to consider. Let's start with the first one. So I'm simply going for a simple instruction, add a comma b comma c. That means we can also write it as a plus b plus c. So a is equals to b plus c. So a equals to b plus c means b is one data. This is operator or operand 1. C is an operand 2. A is the result. Okay. This is a opcode or instruction code as we specified in the previous slide. Now add has been uniquely specified with the 1010. Now A, B, C, 3 operators we have. So we have to specify with the locations of a data with respect to A, B and C. So we have generally specification of 4 bits for opcode as a common thing and 6 bits for representing my data. So in the 6 bits we'll be composing for A, B and C. So these are the specifications we need to make. So for understanding this, we will be going for the instruction format specifications, where you are following with the 3 operand instructions as a first and basic things. So this is a general common thing so that you can easily understand. So we have started with the add ABC, which is equals to A equals to B plus C. So we are adding two numbers and storing the result into A. So to handle this operation, you can see the bit specification over here, and this is called as instruction format. So we are calling this as 3 operand instructions because one for A, one for B, one for C, and the opcode for add. 4 bits is common for any kind of opcode, whether you are writing move or load or shift or add or subtract. Whatever you are writing, you are having only 4 bits as a combination of opcodes. Next one is ABC, which is specification of operands. That means ABC, whatever the values you are taking, those things will be represented as next data presentations. This is called 3 operand instructions. As I said earlier, A plus B plus C can be represented either as A plus B plus C or else D plus C. If I take this as D plus C. Different specifications can be happening. So this is a 3-bit, which is a common one. You can easily understand. Now the second one is 2 operand instructions, where you're focusing on the same matter but in the different formats. So you can write the same statement of addition of 2 numbers with respect to different instructions. One is move A comma B. What happens here? B is loaded into A and now A is being added with C. So A is added with C. So A plus C is being assigning the value to A. Already A is been assigned to, so B is assigned to A. So what happens here? B is already dumped with A. B is already overwriting content of A and it has been added with the C. So initially A is empty. This is swapped with B. Now it is added with C. Finally result is stored in A. So now what happened here? We have one more instruction. In the previous slide, we have seen add is having the opcode 1010. Now we have same opcode 1010. This is unique code. This cannot be changed for every execution. If I have add, that add is defined with only unique number. That is called opcode for add. Now we are having the next instruction move. So move is having the value of 1000. Now the same thing. So in the move instruction we use 2 operands. Even in add also we have used 2 operands. So it is considering 4 bits for handling the data. So we are calling this as a 2 bits for data 1, data 2 and 4 bits for opcode representation. So this is my representation. It is my representation. This is called 2 operand instructions. Next one is the same way we can also have different patterns. The third pattern we have is 1 operand instruction. That means initially we have taken 3 operators or 3 data values. Next we have taken 2 data values. Now we are taking only 1 data value to perform addition of 2 numbers. Let us see. So first we are loading accumulator with a B. Then we are adding with a C. Now we are storing again with the accumulator. So what happens here? Initially B is loaded with accumulator, which is a temporary register to handle the operation. Next one is accumulator is appended with C and it has been loaded into accumulator next. Now the accumulator value has been loaded to A. So we are using only 2 data operators, but it is using temporary register accumulator. Now here what happened? In the first case we have only single line instruction. In the second case we got 2 instructions. Now we got 3 instructions. So load is having a unique code 0000. Add is having some unique code which is already seen in the previous slides. Now store is having a unique code 0001. Now how many data operators we are using? Data operators or operands we are using? Only 1. So it is possessing only 2 bits of data followed by 4 bits of operation, opcode. So 4 bits for opcode, 2 bits for data handling. So in this way we are performing the operation to handle the 1 operand instructions. Now we are left with the next one, that is completely nil operators. So we call this as 0 operand instructions. Now what do you mean by 0 operand instructions? We don't possess any of the data operators as a separate entity. We just use the stack operations to perform the task. So in order to consider this, we'll have a same case. We are loading into stack B. Then we are loading into stack C. So as I am loading the data onto the stack, we'll be calling with the push operations. Now I am loading the operation add. Now I am performing the addition of those 2 numbers. So initially stack is loaded with B, then stack is loaded with C. Now it is loaded with plus. Now when the operator has been received, it has to pop out C add and B. It has to give me the result and it should be pushed again. It should be pushed again. So this will be feeded with the value. So this will be feeding with the value. Now this has to pop out. This has to pop out. So in this way, you're performing the operations with respect to stack. So these are the 4 instructions with respect to 0 operand instruction. That means the data is specified clearly. We can have a single instruction. If you are not interested to specify, then you need to reduce the instructions. So we need to reduce the operands and we need to increase the instructions. So in this way, you need to operate the corresponding instructions basing on the requirement. So why do we require this kind of instruction set? Why do we require this kind of instruction format? It depends on the design model of a computer. So somebody can design the pen like this. Somebody can design the pen in different formats. Somebody can design the pen with a single refill format, or somebody can design the pen with a very slim format. The nib of the pen will be different. The pen format will be different. That means the design process is the basic concern for any computer to handle the task. So my intention is to simply say that a computer is a general context, or it is a peripheral device which accepts input, perform task and provides you the result. How to perform that task? I am using the complete notations, I am using the single notations, or I am using the full notations or only medium notations. That is different. So how do you design that is purely the interest of a designer. At the same time, it depends on the missions with the compatibility operators. So because of this reason, basing on the design principle, the computer sizes has to be decreased. Because of this reason, if its size is decreased, it cannot perform n number of operations. So in order to construct that, we have been constructing the instruction sizes also. So instruction sizes have been getting reduced and the number of instructions you are executing is getting more. So that operation speed is increasing. Processing time is also increasing. So in this way, that means speed is increasing with respect to operations of the computer. So what is the difference between the older CPU with the punching machines and the batch processing systems and the latest generation systems? The design with respect to the transistor memories, memory sizes, instruction fetching, all different operations have been generated. So because of this reason, all these things have been considered for the consideration of a design of a computers. Because of this reason, because of this aspect, we'll be learning about the instruction format. So as my intention is to design a simple computer with a basic specifications and a very good performance, we need to go for a instruction size specifications also. Because of this reason, we are learning instruction formats. So now the next one is instruction set architecture. So instruction set architecture. So what is the meaning of this instruction set architecture? As I said earlier, the pen can be designed like this. Pen can be designed with a slim process. Pen can be designed with a different refill type approach. Pen can be designed with different approaches. So different models can be represented. Whatever the models you are writing, we have been learnt about the instructions. We have been learnt about how data is represented. Now we have to learn that what is the size specification you need to maintain so that your instructions can be well designed. So in this aspect, we'll be learning about the context called as instruction set architecture. Now, the instruction set architecture is generally composed of 3 basic things. One is how the design of instruction is there, on how many instructions can be executed, the set of instructions you need to provide. Next, what forms of registers it can use to handle the operations. Should I use directly from memory or should I handle the instructions from the register? So that kind of things you have to consider. And how do you access the location from the memory? So is it taking much time to access, or are we maintaining any simple shortest representations to access the data from the memory? Next one is, what is the important attribute of the instruction set architecture? So the basic issue you have to consider is completeness. Now, what is the purpose of pen? So it is intended to write. What is the purpose of the mobile? It is intended to communicate. What is the purpose of the slide? So it is intended to provide you the information. So every task which you are performing, even it is a design of a computer or design of an instruction, design of a program, whatever the task you're performing, it should achieve its objective. It should achieve its functionality. This case is called as completeness. And next one is orthogonality. Orthogonality is a case where you have to see that there is no overlapping of instruction executions. If one instruction is executing, the next instruction should not hit with the same instruction to handle the execution. So two operations cannot perform the overlapping of instructions. So two operations cannot overlap with each other for handling the execution. Because of this reason, we need to possess the orthogonality as a basic attribute. The last one is, how do you design the data transfers? How do you design data transfers using register design? So register set design is also one of the important attribute in considering the instruction set architecture design. So what are the requirements for this? So it should possess the version compatibility. That means the PPT which I have done on 2003 version should also be compatible with 2017. So is it possible or not? So that kind of things you have to consider. Next one is data types and sizes. So we don't have any changes in data types because everything is uniform, or every type of data is uniform in different programming notations. So it is common. Next one is interrupts. So interrupts handling. How can you handle the interrupts? If at all I am designing any computer, is it compatible with the version or not? This is the first case. Next, is it supporting all the types of data or not? That is second issue. Third one is, it could able to handle the errors or not. If anything goes fail or any issues have happened, is it could able to recop it or cope up with the errors or not? That is also one of the case. Next one is conditional instructions. So if at all I have any infinite loopings or any other problems with the execution of a program, so is it able to handle that kind of instructions or not? That case of things have been considered as a requirements for the instruction set architecture. So in today's session, what are the things we have, what are the key points we have been learned? We have been seen about the instruction set architecture design with respect to basic things, or instruction to with respect to assembly language notations. We have started with assembly notations by using assembly language instructions, where you have been defined with the instruction types, data types, addressing modes, and finally instruction formats. So as a part of these two, we have already discussed in the past session. Now for today's session, we have been discussed about the addressing modes and instruction formats. Addressing modes is to specify where exactly my data is, how to locate that, how to organize that. That is defined in the addressing modes. So we have seen the set of 8 classification of addressing modes to handle the task of operation, or task of transferring, or task of handling the data fetching operation. Next one is data representation with respect to instruction format. So data representation can be of different types. We can start with a 0 operand instructions to 3 operand or a 3 operand instructions, where you are seeing that simple fetching of a meaning with respect to the single line instruction, or else without any operands also we can specify the same instruction executions by means of a stack. So the data representation is being followed in the instruction formats. And now we are going for the instruction set architecture, where you have some basic operations like what exactly it is intended for and what is the use of that particular instruction set architecture. The proposal of instruction set architecture is to understand what exactly the use of the corresponding design, how it can be designed. If at all I am designing that particular system or any other product, I have to see what exactly my requirement is. Is it provided with the basic support or not? All these things are the important constraints you have to follow. Because of that reason, you have to follow the instruction set architecture. So these are the sessions, or these are the topics we have discussed for today's session. So in the next session, we'll be seeing the extension of instruction set architecture by using an example with respect to instruction set. By using a C program or a simple high-level language program, we'll see how the instruction set architecture can be designed with the following requirements. So we see this with the help of instruction set and register set. We'll see the example execution also. So this is about for today's session. Next class we'll meet with the instruction set architecture design. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.